My name was Ahmed. I was a doctor, living within the shadows of a bustling clinic in Turkey. A respected figure in my community, bound by the traditions of a faith that promised salvation, yet left me hollow inside. By day, I wore my white coat with pride, treating patients, fulfilling my duties. By night, an insatiable void surrounded me, echoing louder with each prayer I recited. Endless rituals that felt more like shackles. But everything changed during a moment I never saw coming. A relentless swirl of metal and glass twisted my reality into chaos. In the delirium of a near-death experience, I found myself in a boundless desert, dark and terrifying. And there, amidst the shadows, I encountered a figure radiating light. It was Jesus. He called my name, offering a truth that shattered the oppressiveness of my existence and unveiled the spiritual chains that bound me. In that transcendent moment, I glimpsed a reality far beyond the narrow confines of my upbringing, a glimpse of divine love that surpassed the fear ingrained within my soul. I awoke from that experience forever transformed, but also terrified. My return to life was not a return to normalcy. It ignited a fierce storm within me, a battle between the truth I had witnessed and the wrath of my family and community I now faced. What happens when the whispers of your heart collide with the thunder of societal expectation? When the very fabric of your identity is called into question by a revelation so profound, it threatens to consume you. I discovered that my journey was not merely personal. It was a divine commission, a warning to others lost in the web of deception. As I slowly stepped into the light, I realized I had a mission: to awaken others to the truth hidden beneath the weight of tradition. Today I share this journey with you, not just to recount my story, but to light a path for those longing for freedom from their spiritual prisons, empowered to walk boldly into the unknown. So as we dive deeper into this testament of transformation, I invite you to pause for a moment. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Let's connect in this pursuit of truth. And if you feel the tug of Jesus' love, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. This is only the beginning of revelations that could change everything. In the bustling clinic in my conservative Turkish city, the air was always thick, with a profound weight that seemed to hang over every interaction. As a medical doctor, I was accustomed to the pressures of my profession, but the added burden of societal and religious expectations created an atmosphere that felt stifling at times. Conversations about faith and medicine were laced with honor and fear, navigating a delicate balance that left little room for dissenting beliefs. Each day, I dutifully adhered to the Islamic traditions that had shaped my upbringing, but deep down, I struggled with an emptiness that lingered, a thirst for something more profound that my cultural confines couldn't address. One fateful day, while treating a patient, I felt an unshakable sense of unease. The usual hustle and bustle of the clinic faded as if time had stopped. Suddenly, the lights flickered and everything around me dissolved into darkness. I lost consciousness, and in that void, I found myself in an entirely different realm. It was a space suspended between worlds, where neither time nor gravity seemed to exist. I felt weightless, yet I was aware of a presence that surrounded me, an intense, radiant light. As the darkness receded, I found myself face to face with Jesus. His light flooded my being, infusing me with warmth, love, and an overwhelming sense of peace that I had never known. In that divine moment, Jesus began to reveal truths that shattered my understanding of the world. He spoke of a spiritual war, one that permeated not only my life, but the fabric of society itself. I witnessed how the elite manipulated narratives to keep people bound in fear and ignorance. The revelation was earth-shattering. I could see the deception that had woven itself into the very traditions I had followed all my life. I had been living under a hidden agenda that perpetuated division, controlling not just the minds but the hearts of many. And here was Jesus, showing me a way out through love, empathy, and awakening. As he shared these insights, I was filled with an urgency to return and share this profound awakening with others. The truth he revealed, illuminated a path forward that transcended the constraints of culture and faith. I understood that the deception I once thought necessary to uphold was suffocating the very essence of spiritual growth. I felt deeply compelled to become a voice for truth, to awaken those around me who were still trapped in the chains of traditional beliefs. Each insight whispered the promise of liberation, a call to arms against the spiritual ignorance that surrounded us. But as the light began to fade and I was pulled back into reality, I felt a mix of dread and determination. Returning to my life in the clinic meant confronting the very fears that had held me captive. How would I articulate these revelations to my colleagues and family, who were steeped in the traditions I had begun to question? The threats of ostracism loomed large, the potential backlash from those who clung tightly to their beliefs reminding me of the spiritual war one was now entrenched in. The encounter with Jesus had offered me freedom and a purpose, but it also came with a heavy responsibility, the need to challenge deception and extend a hand to those still walking in darkness, just as I had been. As a 35-year-old physician in a bustling hospital, I had always prided myself on the respect I garnered from my colleagues and patients alike. I followed my faith diligently, performing my duties with compassion and dedication. Yet, despite the outward success and the honors that came with my profession, I found myself feeling increasingly emotionally empty. There was a growing chasm between the man I portrayed to the world and the turmoil brewing inside me. Each day, as I walked through the hospital corridors, the pressure to conform to cultural expectations felt suffocating, and I felt more isolated in my spiritual dissatisfaction. This internal conflict escalated one fateful night when I was involved in a near-fatal car accident on my way home from work. The impact was immediate and jarring. In that dreadful moment, I felt my consciousness slipping away. Darkness enveloped me, and for an instant, I believed it might be the end. But then, something incredible happened. Instead of fading into nothingness, I found myself in a luminous space filled with warmth and light. It was as if time itself had ceased to exist, and there, standing before me, was Jesus. In that radiant presence, everything changed. He looked directly into my soul, and I felt an overwhelming rush of love and understanding. Jesus began to reveal to me truths I had been unaware of, unraveling the complexities of my existence. The spiritual war within me that had ignited throughout my life became strikingly clear. He spoke of the hidden agendas perpetuated by the elite, revealing how the narratives we follow are often woven with deception and aimed at keeping humanity fragmented and fearful. I saw glimpses of how societal issues, wars, societal divides, and the manipulation we endure are all part of a larger scheme that seeks to control us. At that moment, I understood that the emptiness I felt was not just dissatisfaction with my own life, but a reflection of a broader spiritual struggle affecting countless individuals. I realized that tradition, while important in many ways, had clouded the truth of who we are and who we can become. Jesus illuminated the path to awakening, showing me that true freedom lies in embracing the love and truth he offers. This revelation filled me with a sense of purpose that I had long thought lost, offering a clarity that transcended the veils of deception I had encountered throughout my life. As I returned to consciousness, the weight of this spiritual awakening bore down on me with unparalleled intensity. I understood that I was called to share this transformative experience, to expose the hidden agendas that shape our world. My duty as a physician expanded beyond treating ailments. It became about healing the spiritual wounds many carry in silence. But with that knowledge came a heavy burden of fear. Would my family accept my revelations? Would I risk losing everything I had built? The trepidation of confronting those I loved with my newfound beliefs loomed large, creating an inner conflict that mirrored the spiritual war. One now fully understood. In that swirling mix of emotions, I felt both empowered and terrified. The journey ahead seemed daunting, filled with potential rejection from my community and family, yet ignited by the urgency to spread the truth I had encountered. I was prepared to rise against the forces of deception that held so many captive. My heart raced with the prospect of embarking on a mission that promised not only to change my life, but could potentially awaken others who, like me, were searching for meaning in a world overshadowed by fear. The spiritual war was real, and I was resolute in my commitment to fight for the truth, whatever the cost may be. As I engaged in my daily prayers, a growing sense of emptiness began to creep into my heart, lurking in the corners of my mind like an unwelcome guest. Each recitation became an echo of my discontent, resonating with doubts I couldn't ignore. I had always shared a profound connection with my faith, but now, during moments of solitude, I found myself grappling with questions that challenged everything I had been taught. The traditions that once provided comfort began to feel more like chains, binding me to a system that left me spiritually depleted. It was a confusing paradox. I was a respected doctor surrounded by family and community, yet I felt utterly alone in my struggle. The unsettling dreams began soon after, vivid and unyielding, each one shaking the very foundation of my beliefs. In these dreams, I found myself standing at a crossroads, unsettling visions swirling in my mind, challenging the religious narratives I'd accepted without question. Faces of friends and family flickered in and out of focus, their beliefs and expectations pressing down on me like weights. These dreams served as warnings, illuminated by a voice I could not ignore, a voice that resembled the cadence of Jesus. Each night, I would awaken in a cold sweat, heart racing, overwhelmed by the urgency embedded in those dreamscapes. I longed to voice my concerns, to seek clarity, but the fear of being ostracized loomed large. As the days passed, I attempted to maintain the facade of a devoted Muslim physician, committed to the very traditions that simultaneously alienated me. My colleagues were steeped in the same cultural and religious fabric, their perspectives a tapestry woven with pride and conviction. Yet beneath the surface, I could sense an undercurrent of tension, a collective wrestling with doubt obscured by the pressures to conform. At times, my co-workers would speak of matters of faith, and though I nodded along, inside I felt like a ghost, haunting my own life while yearning for a truth I couldn't articulate. That pivotal moment came unexpectedly during a night shift. While tending to a critically ill patient, a strange calm washed over me as I worked. In that tranquility, I again heard the voice of Jesus, echoing softly amidst the chaos of beeping machines and hushed whispers. "Awaken," he urged. "The truth lies beyond the deception." It was as if time stood still, and in that moment, all the fragmented pieces of my existence fell into place. I saw visions of a world plagued by manipulation, how the elite wielded power through fear and ignorance, creating an environment rife with division and despair. Each revelation unlocked something deep within me. What had once been mere dissatisfaction now transformed into a burning desire for awakening and clarity. While the experience was exhilarating, it was also fraught with urgency. I knew I was at a crossroads, faced with the impossible task of confronting the hidden agendas that kept so many in chains, including myself. The realization that I could no longer ignore my own spiritual war weighed heavily on me. I felt compelled to reach out, to open my mouth and speak the truths that had been revealed to me, yet fear gripped me tighter. How could I share such radical beliefs in a world that demanded conformity? How could I risk alienating those I loved? And yet the need for truth prevailed, pushing me closer to the precipice of a decision that would forever alter the course of my life and the lives of those around me. The awakening was no longer just personal. It became a mission, a calling that I could not ignore. The moment my car collided with the concrete barrier, everything shattered in an instant. I could feel the jarring impact, and then darkness enveloped me like a shroud. The cacophony of sounds faded away, replaced by a profound silence that settled over my consciousness. I slipped into a coma, a state where the world outside ceased to exist, and for a while, I was unmoored from reality. It was only during that time, adrift in the vast expanse of my own mind, that I found myself thrust into an experience that would alter my understanding of life and truth. In the depths of that darkness, I found myself wandering through a desolate desert. The air was suffocating and the ground was parched, an unforgiving landscape that mirrored the turmoil I had felt within. Loneliness pressed down on me like a heavy weight. Just when despair threatened to consume me, I saw a figure emerging from the horizon bathed in radiant light. It was Jesus. His presence exuded warmth and compassion, pulling me toward him like a moth to a flame. As he approached, he called my name, and I felt an indescribable sense of recognition and solace wash over me. The light he carried seemed to dispel the darkness surrounding me, illuminating the hidden corners of my soul. In that moment, Jesus offered me a revelation that shattered the illusions I had clung to for so long. He showed me the spiritual oppression I had endured throughout my life, how the hidden agendas of the elite manipulated my beliefs, ensnaring me within a web of deception. I saw the blind spots in my understanding, how traditions that were supposed to bring me closer to God had, in fact, kept me shackled in fear and isolation. As images flashed before me, I witnessed the societal divides, the wars, the suffering, and the manipulation that plagued humanity. I felt the urgency of these truths flooding my heart. Jesus spoke of the spiritual war that raged within and around us, emphasizing the need for awakening. He urged me to recognize that my battle was not just personal, it was a collective struggle for freedom and enlightenment. The idea that I could find liberation in embracing the love and truth he offered was both liberating and terrifying. It filled me with a sense of purpose I had never experienced before. But as the vision began to fade and darkness threatened to pull me back once more, I felt a fierce determination rising within me. The choice was clear: to return to my life and share these revelations, or allow fear to silence the truth. With every ounce of strength I could muster, I chose liberation. When I awoke from that coma, I no longer felt the same emptiness that had plagued me for years. Instead, I felt a fire ignited within me, a desire to confront the hidden agendas of those who sought to control the narrative. It was time to embrace my awakening and advocate for the truth, to challenge the deception that kept so many in chains. And as I took my first breath back in this world, I knew the journey was just beginning. When I finally awoke from that life-altering coma, I was met not with the warmth of family and friends, but with stark, cold reality. My body's movement was sluggish, and my mind felt clouded, but the tumult within me surged with clarity and fear. I had ventured into a realm beyond comprehension, encountered Jesus, and returned with revelations that dissolved the fabric of my previous existence. Yet, as I opened my eyes, reality crashed down upon me, and I faced a shocking truth. My family viewed me as a traitor. Their eyes, once filled with love, now reflected disappointment and betrayal, marking me as an outsider. The very community that had raised me began to isolate me, casting me adrift in a sea of loneliness. Every whispered conversation I overheard in hushed tones felt like daggers. I sensed their disdain, and it gripped my heart like a vice. The cultural expectations that had once anchored me now felt like chains, dragging me into an abyss of guilt. My newfound faith in Jesus filled me with hope, yet the haunting fear of loneliness loomed larger. Would I truly have to lose my family to find my spiritual truth? The conflict stirred within me relentlessly. I wanted to embrace what I had found, but the thought of abandonment shattered my resolve time and time again. In those dark moments of introspection, I wrestled with my identity as a Muslim existing alongside a burgeoning understanding of Christianity. Despite the turmoil, the still small voice within me urged me to continue exploring the teachings of Jesus. I began to seek solace in secret, devoting late nights to studying the Bible, consumed by a thirst for truth that could not be quenched. Each page felt like a lifeline, echoing with the same love and compassion I had encountered in my vision. The messages of hope resonated deeply, illuminating the deceptions of this world. I could feel the weight of the hidden agendas woven into our society, the manipulation by the elite that kept so many of us in spiritual bondage. The moment I opened my heart to these revelations, I felt the stirring of awakening within, stirring the desire to break free from the constraints that had held me captive for far too long. With every word I read, I felt empowered, yet the shadows of fear continued to creep in. What would happen if my family found out about my explorations? The fear of rejection was paralyzing, yet the urgency of the spiritual war that was unfolding around me pressed me into action. I had witnessed the deception and division that plagued humanity, yet here I was, trapped in my own conflict. I knew others were suffering silently too, battling their doubts without any means of escape or understanding. Deep down, I wanted to break the chains not just for myself, but for them as well. I yearned for a day when I could share my story openly, but my fear of the backlash loomed larger than my courage. Each day became an internal battle, a dichotomy between the life I once led and the path I yearned to pursue. I desperately needed guidance, and in my moments of solitude, I often cried out to Jesus for clarity, for strength, yearning to be a beacon of light in a world shrouded in darkness. I sought to understand how to bridge this newfound faith with the love I still had for my family, a family tethered to traditions I had begun to question. The spiritual awakening I experienced was not solely for me. It was a larger calling to stand against the darkness that gripped so many hearts. As I wrestled with these complex feelings, I held tight to the revelation that the truth and love I found in Jesus could shatter the chains of deception that held us all captive. With a newfound courage ignited by my encounter with Jesus, I found myself drawn to the Bible, poring over its pages with a thirst for understanding. Each read was a quest, a journey into a world of truths and revelations that stirred something deep within me. I started to uncover the layers of my beliefs, peeling them back like the skin of an onion. What I discovered was both liberating and terrifying. The stories of faith and love, intertwined with the truth that challenged the hidden agendas I had come to realize, were woven into the fabric of my upbringing. My heart raced as I absorbed the teachings of Jesus, recognizing them not as a departure from my past, but as the fulfillment of a longing I had not known I held. In my search for deeper understanding, I began watching online testimonies from people who had walked similar paths. Each account was a spark, igniting hope and curiosity. I listened as individuals shared their struggles, their moments of doubt, and ultimate awakening. There was an unmistakable thread connecting us all, a spiritual war that raged silently in the shadows of society. The stories resonated with me, revealing the collective deception perpetuated by the elite, who sought to maintain control and manipulate our beliefs through fear and division. I felt less alone in my journey, yet each story amplified my fear of the consequences that lay ahead. Realizing I wasn't the only one grappling with these profound changes was exhilarating, but it was also frightening. I soon connected with a small, clandestine community of believers who shared similar experiences. Our meetings, often conducted in secrecy, became a sanctuary where we could explore our newfound faith without judgment. I felt a deep sense of peace in these gatherings. We were all searching for truth in a world so shrouded in deception. Every discussion seemed to lift the veil from my eyes further, allowing me to see the urgency of our spiritual awakening. We talked about the manipulation of knowledge and how tradition sometimes stifled true connection with God. However, as this awakening unfolded, the fear of losing everything familiar gripped my heart tighter. Each time I met with my new friends, the reality of my situation loomed larger. The stakes felt infinitely high. I was playing with a fire that could very well consume me. My family lay in the shadows of my past, and the thought of their rejection haunted me. Would I be cast aside from the very fabric of my life? The dilemma turned my nights into restless battles of anxiety, questioning whether the truth I discovered was worth the potential sacrifice. Each anecdote I heard from fellow seekers contained echoes of my own fears. The risks echoed in their eyes, the anxiety mirrored in their words. As the days turned to weeks, the tension grew. I felt caught in a spiritual tug-of-war between my past life and the new truths I was awakening to. The love and understanding I encountered in Jesus filled me with hope, but the threat of isolation felt ever present. I began to realize that breaking free from the chains of tradition required an unwavering commitment to the truth, no matter the cost. Yet, the desire to share what I had learned with the world, to open the eyes of others, kindled a fire inside me that was impossible to extinguish. I understood that this journey was not merely about me. It was about standing firm against the deceptions that ensnared so many of us, all while I navigated the choppy waters of fear and uncertainty that loomed ahead. As I reflected on my transformative experience, it became increasingly clear that my journey served a higher purpose. The encounter with Jesus engulfed me in a profound truth, a revelation that demanded to be shared. I could no longer remain silent, drowning in the fear of rejection from my family and community. The love and clarity I found in that sacred moment were too powerful to hold back. While the thought of speaking out filled me with dread, the urgency to warn others about the spiritual liberation I had discovered outweighed my personal fears. I recognized that many around me were trapped in the same web of deception, held captive by a hidden agenda designed to keep us subservient to the elite. With each passing day, my heart ached for the countless souls who had yet to taste the freedom I now held. I began to draft a plan for how I could share my truth. It was terrifying to think of exposing my revelations, but I could almost hear Jesus' voice encouraging me to step boldly into the light, to challenge the status quo that subtly and insidiously stifled our spirits. The spiritual war one had witnessed was not fought with weapons, but with words of love and courage. I needed to gather my courage and stand firm against the darkness that clouded the minds of so many. As I dove deeper into studying the Bible and the teachings of Jesus, I felt my resolve deepen. Each passage confirmed that I was not alone in my journey. There were countless others throughout history who had faced similar persecution for the truth they dared to share. Their stories lent me strength to navigate my fear. I also began connecting with individuals who had experienced their own awakenings, together forming a small community of believers willing to share our testimonies. In those moments, I found solace. The fire of our shared purpose ignited a spark within me, filling my heart with hope and determination. However, I couldn't shake the fear that clung to me like a shroud. What would my family think if they discovered my intentions? The thought of facing their wrath left me paralyzed at times. The weight of expectation from my community seemed insurmountable, and every plan I drafted felt inadequate compared to the monumental task ahead. Yet, I felt compelled to forge ahead, as if the universe had set me on this path for a reason. I was no longer just fighting for my own liberation, but for those still entangled in the chains of deception experienced by so many. Despite the trepidation, my desire to share the truth grew stronger. I envisioned gatherings where we could speak openly about our struggles, share our experiences, and beam light into the shadows of confusion. I began drafting articles, creating blogs, even utilizing social media to share my journey. With each word, I could feel the chains of fear loosening. I wanted others to awaken to the deception that clouded not just their lives, but the world at large. The awakening was a call to action, spreading like wildfire, and I resolved to be an instrument of that change. I was ready to confront the storm that awaited me head-on, knowing that every step toward sharing my truth was also a step toward healing the wounds of a fractured society. In a powerful act of bravery, I found myself standing at a crossroads that would change my life forever. The internal conflict I had battled for years had reached a boiling point. After that harrowing experience in the hospital with Jesus, I knew that I could no longer live a lie. The weight of family expectations and societal norms felt suffocating. But the light of revelation I had encountered ignited a determination within me. I had witnessed the truth, and although the pain of rejection loomed ahead, I felt compelled to break free from the invisible chains that bound me to my old life. Leaving home was a radical decision, one that filled me with a mix of fear and exhilaration. I created a new identity, shedding the name and image that had once defined me. I ventured into the unknown, eager yet apprehensive, knowing that without this leap of faith, I would never find the spiritual freedom I sought. I longed to be part of a community that shared my beliefs, so I sought out a clandestine group of individuals who had experienced similar awakenings. In our gatherings, we exchanged stories, peeling back the layers of deception we had encountered. Yet, even as I embraced my new path, the pain of rejection weighed heavily on my heart. I ached for the family and friends I had left behind, longing to share with them the love and truth that had transformed my life. I could sense their disappointment, their perception of me as a traitor to my culture and faith. Each day, I felt the edge of loneliness slice deeper, but the bond I formed with my new community provided solace. Together, we discussed the spiritual war that raged in our world, the battles against hidden agendas, and the manipulation employed by the elite to maintain control over the masses. We needed to awaken others to the truth before it was too late. As I began to evangelize in secret, a fire ignited in my soul, compelling me to spread the message of Jesus. Every encounter with others became an opportunity to plant seeds of hope and awakening. I felt a sense of urgency, not only for my own salvation, but for those still trapped in the shackles of fear and deception. I understood that religion can imprison, but the truth found in Jesus offers a path to liberation. I could not ignore the call to help others who might still be experiencing the same struggles that had once consumed me. But with every act of bravery came the haunting whispers of doubt and fear. The danger of exposure loomed large over my mission, reminding me of the potential consequences for speaking out against the traditions I had been raised to honor. Would my new community stand by me if the tide turned? As I wrestled with these thoughts, I remained steadfast in my commitment to unveil the truth. The journey was fraught with challenges, but I felt empowered by each small victory. I was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, for the awakening within me was too powerful to ignore, and the spiritual war had only just begun. Now that you've journeyed through my experience, let me leave you with something to ponder. Have you ever felt a stirring in your spirit, a whisper that something greater exists beyond the confines of your reality? It's a question that tugs at the very core of who we are, urging us to awaken to a truth that transcends mere existence. Each of us is a vital thread in a vast tapestry. A spiritual war is raging around us, one that seeks to keep us from recognizing our own power, our own light. My encounter with Jesus shattered the chains of fear that had bound me for so long, and with that liberation came an unshakable urgency, a call to arms against the hidden agendas that seek to control not just our minds, but our souls. This isn't just my narrative. It's a collective awakening beckoning each of us to rise and reclaim our sense of purpose in a world shrouded in deception. Are you ready to confront your inner turmoil? Are you willing to explore the truths that might set you free? This journey is just beginning, and your perspective matters. I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Have you encountered moments of clarity that turned your understanding of faith and existence upside down? I want to hear your stories. Your experiences can inspire others who might be quietly struggling just like we once did. You're not alone in this. Together, we can forge pathways of understanding and hope. As we close this chapter, don't forget to subscribe to Truth from Beyond and activate the notification bell. Each story I share could be the revelation that sparks an awakening within you or someone else. Trust me, the next video will unravel profound insights that beckon us to dig deeper into this spiritual journey. I'm Ahmed, and I appreciate you joining me today. Remember, The truth isn't a destination. It's a journey filled with awakening, exploration, and ultimately, liberation. Keep questioning, keep seeking, and know that we venture into this mysterious realm together. Until next time.